quelques points. Excusez-moi. Donc, moi, je m'appelle Michael STORPER. J'ai eu le prix Lud il y a 2 ans. Je suis actuellement professeur à la London School of Economics en Angleterre et à l'Université de Californie à Los Angeles, UCLA. Et je fais de la géographie économique comme mon collègue Ron, qui est un ami de longue date en l'occurrence. Mais c'est pour ça, ce n'est pas pour ça qu'il était évidemment choisi comme lauréat cette année. Il était choisi sur la base de ses qualités scientifiques. Et pour vous donner quelques indications biographiques, Ron, il a eu donc 2 doctorats, un doctorat en géographie sociale de l'Université d'Amsterdam, un PhD, donc doctorat en économie de l'Université Erasmus de Rotterdam. Il a une carrière qui se déroule autour des postes à l'Université de Twente aux Pays-Bas, de Utrecht également aux Pays-Bas, et à l'Université de Lund en Suède. Il est actuellement professeur titulaire à la fois à l'Université d'Utrecht aux Pays-Bas, ainsi que l'Université de Stavanger en Norvège, et également il a un poste à Toulouse, chez les économistes. Donc vous donnez un peu l'idée de son rayonnement scientifique. Ces distinctions sont trop nombreuses pour détailler ici, mais on peut signaler que Thomson Reuters, qui en fait fait de la cliométrie, la bibliométrie des scientifiques autour du monde, le reconnaît régulièrement comme l'un des chercheurs au monde parmi les 1% les plus cités, qui compte 117 articles scientifiques en revue à comité de lecture, ainsi que 54 chapitres dans les ouvrages collectifs et 4 ouvrages à lui-même. Il est membre de la communauté de pratique, comme on dit, Community of Practice de l'Union européenne pour la politique de la spécialisation intelligente, Smart Specialization, de l'Union, qui est l'une des plus importantes politiques de l'Union européenne. Il était rédacteur en chef de plusieurs revues telles Cambridge Journal of Regions, Economy and Society, Regional Studies, et ainsi de suite. Donc, bienvenue Ron, félicitations. Et moi, je vais donc maintenant, on va entamer le dialogue. Je vais poser quelques questions à Ron qui lui permettraient de vous expliquer sa carrière. Et Mathias va donc résumer les réponses. C'est ça? OK. OK. So I'll do it first in French and then I'll give you the question in English. OK? Donc, première question. Parlons d'abord de votre carrière en géographie économique. Pourriez-vous nous détailler les principales étapes de votre parcours intellectuel? So let's talk first about your career as an economic geographer. What are the principal steps in your intellectual development?
All right. Okay. Thanks very much. First of all, I would like to thank you for being here. Thanks for coming. Very happy, of course, to be here and to be invited and to get this wonderful prize. I'm very honored and very happy also to be part of the Festival of Geography. Although I'm not, of course, I cannot master the French language. I understand a bit. I can read it, but of course, always remains a big challenge to understand really the meaning of what has been said. And also thanks for Michael for doing this interview. Okay, my intellectual development. Well, I'm old, so I made major steps during my career. I think if I have to answer to that question, I first have to start when I did my studies in human geography at the University of Amsterdam, which were really formative for my thinking. Not the least because one of my great professors in economic geography, Jan Lamboy, right, who you know very well. He is now very old, but he learned me the principles of geography and especially economic geography, and I became really very enthusiastic when he was teaching economic geography. So he was very influential in that respect. But he was also very influential because he did economics in a very non-orthodox way. And we were part of a faculty of economics in those days. And you can imagine when you do non-orthodox economics in a faculty where mainstream economics is the leading principle, you become kind of isolated. I mean, it was in those days, but it was maybe it's also even true for nowadays, at least in the field of economics. But what I felt in the field of geography is that it is a very welcoming community, right? So which is in contrast to economics, where they have their own preferred methods, so that was very important for my own intellectual development, because I really could think out loud and follow my own way. And Jan Lamboy was one of the main key figures that made me realize how important that is. So that was definitely one an important step. The second important step is when I did my PhD, and I did my PhD in economics. And I did that at the Tinbergen Institute in the Netherlands, which is, again, full of mainstream economists. But Jan Lamboy already laid the foundations of me thinking differently in the field of economics and actually challenging economists, going away from equilibrium analysis, going away from all kinds of unrealistic assumptions like unbounded rationality, equilibrium analysis, etc., etc., in which history did not matter at all. And I wanted to develop a new way of doing economics, and to my surprise, I found literature in evolutionary economics that actually were making those type of points. So I started to read the literature by Dick Nelson and Sid Winter. They published a famous book in 1982, was a theory on economic change. When I read that book, I mean, I was completely overwhelmed, because this was really what I was looking for. And of course, I was very young and very immature, and I could not really find the right words to express my thoughts, and here it was. So for me, it was really an intellectual eye-opener. And then I started to read all that literature. I mean, I'm talking about the early 1990s, so no internet. I had no idea that there was a scientific community in evolution economics. So I was just reading this stuff, but I could not meet them. I didn't know where they were. It seems like silly right now, in time of internet, in which we all were very well informed and we can just Google easily and find people. But in those days it was really problematic. So I started reading that, and to me, for me, it was a fantastic intellectual experience. The first conference, because they had a conference, it was the Schumpeter conference. And the first one I attended was in 2004, so that was 10 years after completing my PhD. I connected personally to those schoolers, and for me, I felt like a child that went into a toy shop, and for me, of course, you're overwhelmed and you want to have all those toys you want to play with. And for me, it was actually like that when I was at the Schumpeter conference in Milano. I went to sessions, and there I saw that people were doing exactly the things that I wanted to do, and I was already doing. So so in the community of geography, but also in the community of economics, they were not very familiar with this type of thinking. And then I've suddenly found a community that they found it absolutely normal that you were doing research like that. So I really felt at home immediately, and for me it was super inspiring. And then of course I remained connected to them till today. So that was very important. Now also, and this is more personal also, and I never mentioned that to Michael. When I was doing my PhD, at least I think already in my 3rd or 4th year of my PhD, I was on a second-hand market and second-hand book market in Amsterdam, and which book did I found there? The Capitalist Imperative. It was there on a second-hand market, and of course I became immediately intrigued. I bought the book, and then I started to read it, and that was also very influential because you developed there the concept of window of location opportunity, which in a way I wrote my PhD thesis on, right? So actually it was also in the title, looking through a window of location opportunities. And that made also a major impact on my own development, and since then I've been working on this type of topic. Now the window of location opportunities is a concept in which you're gonna analyze to what extent all kinds of major technological breakthroughs that happen now and then, where they will locate, where they will exploit it and being developed. And then the big question is, to what extent do all regions have the opportunities to contribute to the further development of those technological breakthroughs? Some regions might have opportunities, some regions might not have those. And that, of course, is already an interesting topic by itself. So to what extent are there windows of opportunities? How open are those windows of opportunities? Or is it just that some places are much better equipped to take up those opportunities as compared to others? And that, of course, is a geographical question which has major consequences, because the places that actually did master the capabilities that were needed to develop those major technological breakthroughs actually could benefit from that, economically speaking. And of course Silicon Valley is just one example, but a prime example, which has all major economic implications, as we all know.
Why don't we stop at this point in the story, and I'll give you another question on going more deeply into evolutionary economic geography, but kind of break it up and allow Matthias to give a brief summary of l'histoire jusqu'à ce point, ok?
Bon, je vais essayer de résumer un peu. Hein. Donc, tout d'abord, Ron est très content et très honoré d'être là, ici à Saint-Dié, et de recevoir le prix Lud. Donc, il remercie aussi Michael pour le dialogue aujourd'hui, pour être invité. Et il y a plusieurs étapes qui ont marqué sa carrière. Donc, première étape, les études de géographie humaine. Ses études à l'université d'Amsterdam, où il a spécialisé sur la géographie humaine et la géographie économique, et en plus particulièrement sur l'approche d'économie évolutionniste de le professeur Lan Yamboy. Donc c'était très influent pour lui, parce que c'était son enseignant, son professeur au niveau de licence et de master. Puis la deuxième grande étape, le PhD, donc la thèse de doctorat, qu'il a fait à l'Institut Timbergen aux Pays-Bas en économie. Donc sur cette approche d'économie évolutionniste. Et ça a été très influent pour lui aussi, son professeur, la direction de thèse. Et puis aussi parler, c'était encore un mouvement assez novateur. Et la première conférence où il est allé sur cette approche d'économie évolutionniste, c'était en 2004. Donc pour lui, c'était aussi très révélateur d'être parmi une communauté de chercheurs, pour lui comme un magasin de jouets. En fait, on rencontre tout à coup tout le monde, on peut échanger, on peut avoir de nouvelles idées, beaucoup d'inspiration. Et une anecdote un peu plus intime, où il est allé au marché aux puces, où il a trouvé un bouquin sur ce mouvement. Le bouquin s'appelle, le livre, non, that you have found.
C'est l'un de mes livres qui s'appelle L'impératif capitaliste ou le capitalist
Ouais,
imperative.
voilà, le titre du livre.
C'est mon premier livre,
Voilà.
donc quand j'étais jeune.
Qu'il a trouvé au marché aux puces, donc, à Amsterdam.
Donc,
quand il était,
revendu, ça veut dire. Hein.
Voilà.
Quelqu'un voulait le revendre, il en avait marre.
Et Ron l'a trouvé quand il était en 3e année de thèse. Et de lire ce livre, ça lui a donné aussi beaucoup de nouvelles idées. Hein. Et puis, à la fin, Ron a parlé déjà des approches, un peu comment les régions, c'était son sujet de thèse, ou comment les régions ont des fenêtres d'ouverture, des fenêtres d'opportunité pour le développement. Mais là, on va encore en parler, la suite maintenant du dialogue. Merci.
Merci, Mathias. Okay, donc, you are known as the founder of a current of thought in economic geography. It's known as evolutionary economic geography. Please, very sort of synthetically and briefly explain what is the concept of evolution in geography. Donc, vous êtes connu comme le fondateur d'un courant de pensée étiqueté comme géographie économique évolutionniste. Veuillez donc expliquer, celle présente, ce que veut dire ou c'est quoi l'usage du terme évolution dans l'économie ou dans la géographie.
Yes. I'm one of the founding fathers of evolution economic geography. I first want to make that point, but I'm not the only one, right? So it's always a group of people, right? So that became interested in the topic. So when I was commenting on the first question, I told that the community of evolutionary economists was very influential, but what they did not do is geography. And therefore, we had the idea to say, okay, we have to try to link, on the one hand, the field of evolution economic theory, and we take concepts from there, and we link them to all kinds of questions in geography that are normal questions that we already asked before and for a very long time is, why do some firms locate in some regions and not in other regions? Why do some regions grow more than other regions, etc., right? So you have the same basic questions that are put central in the field of economic geography, but what you try to do is to add an evolutionary perspective and see to what extent this evolutionary approach might have a value added to the explanations that economic geographies already provide when addressing these type of questions. Now, the first concept, which I think to start with, is the notion of bounded rationality, right? It means that, and this is a departure from orthodox economics, which talks about the homo economicus, right? That make optimal decisions, that are fully informed, and they have the extraordinary ability to respond to external information. And of course, that is not what we find in reality. And then some scholars proposed the notion of bounded rationality, means that all of us, we acquire knowledge over time, we build experience, which makes we might become specialists in one particular field, but we do not really understand things and knowledge that are outside our own field, right? So the notion of bounded rationality means two things: we are not fully informed, even in times of internet, right? Because we all know how if we use search engines like Google, we know how the algorithms work, right? So they guide us to parts of the internet that really comes close to the interest that we already showed before when Googling on the internet. So it means that we all go into a kind of bias in which we build on our prior experience, our prior knowledge, and therefore we are not only in the type of information that we get there's a strong bias into what we already know, and we are interested in that type of information, but also our ability to process external information is very limited. So I have a friend that did a PhD in chemistry, and I was always interested to know what type of research he was doing. So he said, well, I give you my PhD thesis, and then you can read about that. Of course, when I was opening his PhD thesis, after 2 sentences, I already got lost. And why? I didn't understand anything of it, what he was writing about, because it is not my topic. It's not the experience, it's not the knowledge that I have. So so that is all about bounded rationality. But it is part of our daily lives. If you go to the supermarket and you're going to buy goods, you're not going to make a very rational decision in the sense that you will compare all products that are in the supermarket, and you compare prices, you compare the qualities of all kinds of yogurts that are available. No, what you tend to do is and it is you build rules of thumbs, you build heuristics. So you build on past experience. So you go to the products and you take them from the shelf that you have already bought before. And that is a way to overcome this extreme uncertainty that we all witness when we have to buy goods. And this is part and parcel of the whole economic system. This is also how firms behave. They can only be very good in the things that they have been good at in the past. And it's very hard for them to change and to move into new market niches or in new technologies they have no prior experience in. And this is what we should take on board when studying economics. It is not the homo economicus, it's not making optimal decisions, and that every economic actor has the capacity to do so. But we all are different. We all have our past, we all have our prior experience, and therefore the notion of variety is super important. So all companies are different from each other, and we have to take that into account. So, and that's why many companies struggle and fail in the long run. And you can imagine how many companies there are in the world and how many companies are created each year. Our system is full of failure. Some companies might just live for 1 or 2 years. Some companies might reach the age of 10 or maybe reach the age of 50, but almost none of them will reach the age of 100. So the reason why there is so much failure is just because of this bounded rationality, is that we cannot cope with all kinds of changes that we are confronted with, and we can address them and cope with them in an optimal way, as mainstream economists would tell us. So that is also a very important. So history matters. We all have pieces of knowledge that we learn, and the same is for regions. Regions accumulate a set of capabilities. So the Paris region, the Ile-de-France region, is very different from Saint-Dié. Of course, I mean, this is obvious, and for geographists is of course the first reason why we do geography. We all know that. So the set of capabilities that are available in the Ile-de-France are very different from the set of capabilities that are here in Saint-Dié, which means that Ile-de-France has many more opportunities to move into new economic activities because they have the capabilities to do so. because capabilities provide opportunities to move into something else, but they set also limits.
We're going to come to all the related diversity stuff. So I think let's stop there,
All right.
and because we're coming to that.
Okay.
All right, and peut-être Mathias peut traduire.
Donc, Ron est un des pères fondateurs de cette approche économie évolutionniste. Et l'idée, c'était, c'était en économie, comment lier cette idée, cette approche à la géographie. Et donc, les questions qui révèlent, par exemple, à la notion spatialité, il y a des régions, en Europe, mais ailleurs aussi, qui affichent une croissance économique conséquente, d'autres non. Pourquoi ? En fait, comment c'est lié à l'histoire des différentes régions. Et Ron a pris l'exemple du consommateur. Donc, quand nous, on va dans un supermarché, on ne prend pas des décisions économiques, disons, optimales, donc, parce qu'on ne compare pas tous les produits qui existent, mais on va prendre une décision, on va acheter un produit par rapport à notre expérience. Parce qu'on connaît ce produit, on a une certaine expérience avec, donc on va acheter un certain produit, pas parce que c'est le choix optimal, mais dû à l'aspect social et historique. Et donc ces décisions, on peut le comparer aussi au niveau individuel et au niveau des régions. Donc, parce que, par exemple, l'Île-de-France, d'autres régions en Europe ont une certaine histoire, ils ont développé des capacités dans certains domaines et qui emmènent à certaines opportunités économiques et d'autres non. Donc, et de pouvoir comparer l'histoire de ces différentes opportunités économiques, si on peut dire. Ça, c'est aussi des questions clés qu'il se pose.
Donc, on va maintenant parler d'une idée. Bon, at the heart of your best known research is a notion of related diversity in regional economies. So, if you could explain this idea in the simplest and most accessible terms to the audience, and why it's different from the traditional opposition between a diversified economy and a specialized one. So, au cœur de vos recherches les plus connues est la notion, et c'est un néologisme, qui est donc celle de la diversité connexe. J'ai essayé de traduire de l'anglais, c'est pas facile. Hein? Et on aimerait bien donc que vous expliquiez au public l'essentiel de cette idée, et comme elle est différente de l'opposition traditionnellement faite entre une économie régionale spécialisée et une économie régionale diversifiée. Ça essaie de faire un peu la quadrature du cercle entre les deux.
Okay. Yes, so this notion of related variety or related diversity we developed about 20 years ago because we were a bit unhappy with the literature. That was, as Michael explained, hey, you have on the one hand, we are interested if cities that are just specialized in one principal activity, whether they grow more or whether you need a city that has a wide variety of different sectors. And the last one has been named after Jane Jacobs, right? We all know Jane Jacobs, of course. He was super famous in geography and planning. She has been a huge source of inspiration of all of us. And she actually made the point that diversity is needed because it will trigger innovation, because you can make many new recommendations, and therefore the best ideas will develop in cities that can offer that diversity. When everything is just specialized in focused on one principal activity, you miss that diversity, and then you will not have that many new ideas and new innovations. So that was the idea. So we think, yeah, that's a great idea, but at the same time, this notion of Jacobs externalities, this economic diversity that might indeed be helpful to produce new ideas and innovation, there should also be, you also need to make sure that the different activities that are in your region could also communicate to each other, right? Because if one sector can mean something to another sector, they have to be related in the sense that if, for example, if you have two industries like pig farming and nuclear energy, you have diversity, but those two sectors have nothing in common. So how can they mean something to each other? So that's why we said we have to be more precise in what sectors can actually mean something to other and which sectors have nothing in common, and therefore no spillovers will take place between those industries. So that's why we came up with this notion of related variety. So you need a wide diversity of sectors that what they have in common is a similar knowledge, similar competences, and that makes that spillovers can take place, and one idea in one sector can still be useful and meaningful to another sector. So to me, that is a very rich concept, because it means that you're gonna see to what extent all activities in your economy can mean something to each other. And so we were going to define which sectors are related to each other and which one are not. So we make the distinction, so not just by looking at diversity per se, but we looked at sectors that are related to each other and sectors that are not related to each other. And our idea was, if you have a lot of related variety in a city, that would really help making innovations and make them grow. And indeed, when we introduced that variable into a conventional growth model, we actually found that related variety matters and takes away the effect of Jacob's externalities. So diversity per se is not explaining economic, urban or regional growth, but related variety does. And so that, I think, was quite a powerful argumentation, which is based on evolutionary principles, right? So again, your bounded rationality. Some sectors can understand what happens in other sectors and can mean something to each other, but other sectors cannot. We are not homo economicus. We cannot fully understand what is going on in every sector, and therefore we cannot benefit from all of those.
Donc, il y a 20 ans, ils ont publié un papier, hein, Ron, qui était très influent. En fait, c'était, bref, la question, quelles conditions sont importantes pour l'innovation de certaines régions et de la croissance économique. Et donc, une condition importante, diversification. Donc, d'avoir une économie diversifiée avec plusieurs industries, mais c'est pas suffisant en fait, parce que il a pris l'exemple, on a par exemple une région avec deux industries différentes, l'agriculture et l'industrie nucléaire. Donc, ce sont deux industries qui communiquent très peu, qui sont pas liées. Donc, ils peuvent pas profiter l'une de l'autre. Et donc, la deuxième condition importante, que ça soit des secteurs qui sont, comment ils sont en lien, comment ils communiquent en fait les secteurs. Donc, ils appellent ça relatedness. Donc, comment les secteurs sont liés en fait, comment ils communiquent. Et ça, c'est aussi important pour une diversification d'une région et l'innovation.
Merci. Il nous reste 4-5 minutes. OK, donc on va raccourcir. Donc, so we're running out of time, so we're going to have to jump questions and do something very short.
All right.
OK, je voudrais, en fait, pour terminer... Ah oui, pardon. Pour terminer, donc, il y a deux points auxquels on voudrait vraiment toucher. D'une part, votre école de pensée a eu une influence dans la formulation des politiques de cohésion régionale de l'Union européenne et de certains pays européens. Donc, j'aimerais bien que vous nous expliquiez le succès et éventuellement des limites de ces politiques. So your school of thought has had some influence on policy formulation. Now we have altogether 5 minutes left. So you have a 1-minute response to how do you see... No, because I have one last... J'ai encore une question sur le rôle de la géographie. Donc, just if you could explain to us how you see the sort of strong points or your successes in formulating regional policies and also some of the limits and challenges today. So you've got
1 minute.
1.5 minutes for that.
All right.
Just give it a soundbite.
Okay, so we are emphasizing the fact that each region has a set of capabilities, right? So, so I made the example of Île-de-France and Saint-Dié. They're very different. So when you do regional innovation policy, you really have to take into account what set of capabilities are there, because they provide opportunities, but they set also limits what you can achieve in doing innovations and developing new economic activities. Now, smart specialization policy in the European Union is big. It's a regional innovation policy that actually departs from the same idea, that regions have to identify capabilities that they're strong at, and they have to exploit and use them in order to make new economic developments. So it's exactly in line with the approach that we follow. So it means that if you don't have any capabilities to move into artificial intelligence, it should be made part of your regional innovation policy. But you have to look for your own strengths. So Saint-Dié might have some capabilities to move, for example, in biotech, but not in anything else. So that should be reflected in their regional innovation policy. Smart specialization policy is really constructed along those lines in the European Union. You know how much money is spent on that? Only in the period 2014-2020, 120 billion euros was spent on that policy. It's a huge intervention scheme. Yeah.
Est-ce qu'il y a des limites?
Yes.
Est-ce que vous voyez les limites et les défis?
Yeah. Of course, every regional policy is super ambitious. So they want to go into the green transition, they want to go into artificial intelligence, things like that. But the message here is that most of them don't have the capabilities to do so. So when they would focus on that in policy terms, you should be realistic and only mention those priorities and go for those in which you have strengths, but forget all about the others in which you... So many regions might not have very strong capabilities to move into the green transition. Well, all regions have the ambition to actually do that. So it's really about searching, exploring what type of opportunities there are to each region, but what also are the limits what can be exposed in that type of policies. Yes.
Traduire rapidement. Donc, la politique régionale, développement régional de l'Union européenne, les grandes lignes de cette politique de smart spécialisation sont que les différentes régions trouvent des capacités, donc des opportunités, des secteurs dans lesquels ils sont très forts, mais vraiment les identifier et laisser tomber les autres. Donc, vraiment trouver les points forts des régions et développer ces points forts. Hein. Et juste pour vous une idée, l'Union européenne dépense beaucoup d'argent. Donc, seulement dans cette période 2014-2020, 120 milliards de dollars, je crois, euros, pardon, en euros, ont été dépensés pour ce développement régional sous l'étiquette de smart spécialisation.
Bon, on m'a dit derrière qu'on avait épuisé notre temps. Ok. J'aurais bien aimé que Ron puisse commenter un peu sur le rôle du géographe engagé dans le monde, mais je pense qu'il a déjà souligné que c'est quelqu'un de très engagé. À la fois, c'est un chercheur, mais qui vise en fait des applications dans le monde réel, politique, social, économique. On va passer donc à à la salle, non? Si j'ai bien compris, il y a une question à poser.
Yeah, thank you very much for your analysis, which is very interesting and key for us in this region where everything is going down. We are getting out of textile and clothing industries. Yes. Now automotive industries is falling, and so and so. So, in your personal analysis, with your in your personal thought, what could be a so-called disruptive innovation which could be useful for a region to get out of this fatality of the next dead, economic dead? Oui, j'ai dit que la région ici était en crise économique et je souhaite avoir une vue pratique à partir des concepts qui viennent d'être exposés par M. BOSCHMA pour sortir à partir de l'innovation de rupture qui me paraît plus importante que l'innovation tout court. Comment faire pour sortir cette région de la fatalité de la mort, industrie textile, automobile, plasturgie, habillement, etc., qui est en train de mourir? Et comment faire pour sortir par le haut, alors même que nous n'avons pas encore les moyens d'avoir des financements suffisants pour l'innovation?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay, very quickly. A super important question, right? So, very relevant questions that policymakers have to deal with on a daily basis. I would say a very short answer is try to explore the capabilities in textiles that still remain and whether you can actually use them and exploit them into new directions. I mean, we have a very interesting example in the Netherlands with an old textile region, the region of Twente. And what they actually did is using those capabilities in which they're strong at, but not going further into textiles, but using those capabilities to move into new fields. And that, I think, is the best way of doing that. Because you build on something that is already there, and you go and you move into new directions. So you renew your economic structure in your region, but by building on what you already have. Don't go for try to become the next Silicon Valley, or try to move into something which is very fashionable and everybody's talking about in the media, but in which you have no capabilities whatsoever. This is a recipe for failure, for policy failure, and this is what I see happening too much. The ones that do well and really exploit existing capabilities and think out loud how we can use them to move into new directions, involve local stakeholders in the region in order to collect ideas in order to make that happen, I think is the way to go forward.
Donc lui, il pense de faire sortir une région de la crise peut être de se baser sur les connaissances que la région qui existe déjà pour se diriger vers d'autres directions. Donc pas dans le même secteur forcément, mais de se diriger vers quelque chose de nouveau, mais vraiment d'utiliser les capacités, donc les connaissances qui sont là. Et l'histoire de l'expérience qu'on a déjà acquis, en fait, d'utiliser les acquis.
Change the routine. To change the routine. Yes, but not just doing completely something different.
Bon, malheureusement, nous avons le devoir de rendre la salle. Je vous remercie d'être présent et surtout on remercie Ron BOSCHMA et on le félicite pour le Prix Vautrin Lud de 2024. Merci Ron.